you're hanging out with Harry, the senator from in South Dakota or whatever, and Harry's got a yacht. I'm like, how'd you get a yacht, Harry?
Yeah.
Like, the Bobby's got his own private jet. How'd you get your own jet, Bob? You're a congressman. Like, what are you doing? And those people that are able to generate that kind of wealth, and I think she's like the poster girl for it, unfortunately. But it's not her. Like, who's made the most?
Let's set the record straight. The so-called Pelosi Act, a proposal designed to outlaw insider trading among members of Congress, has Nancy Pelosi's backing. On paper, that may sound admirable, yet the picture becomes complicated when you realize she personally avoids holding stocks, while her husband does, and with remarkable success. According to recent reports, their combined wealth sits at an eye-catching $413 million. Of course, earning money isn't a crime, but eyebrows are raised when such fortune is tied to someone who has spent decades in public office. The numbers don't quite align with the image of a career politician. And when confronted with questions about this, Pelosi quickly shifted the spotlight elsewhere, straight onto Donald Trump.
You see the Nancy Pelosi thing? Anna Zaguber, he sneaks it in. She's like, I came in here to talk about the anniversary of Medicaid. Like, she cares about Medicaid.
Exactly right. Notice how Tapper neither pressed with questions nor interrupted the flow. Had he done so, the exchange might have turned explosive. The Pelosi family has built a reputation for remarkably well-timed stock trades. Take Microsoft, for example. They sold shares just months before the FTC launched an investigation last year. Pure coincidence? Possibly. Yet, not long after they unloaded Visa stock, only 3 months before the DOJ filed its complaint. These are far from isolated events. Their trading record has repeatedly lined up with major government actions, raising serious questions about how such timing occurs. That pattern is what Joe set out to examine. Let's hear what he uncovered.
If you look at like who's making money on the stock market, it is not all Nancy Pelosi. It is red, blue, red, blue, red, blue.
Let's turn to the numbers that back up Joe's claim. Pelosi's portfolio beat top hedge funds by an astonishing 54% last year. That's not just a good return, it borders on a Wall Street miracle. And she isn't the only one with results like this. Reports from The Independent revealed that more than 20 other members of Congress nearly quadrupled the S&P 500's average gain of 24.9%. What makes it even more striking is that this pattern isn't limited to one side of the aisle. Lawmakers from both parties are involved, showing that the issue runs deeper than partisan politics.
See the Nancy Pelosi thing? The new one?
She was being interviewed and then was like, I didn't want to talk about that.
Anna Zaguber, you put that on. Anna Zaguber, he sneaks it in. She's like, I came in here to talk about the anniversary of Medicaid. Like, she cares about Medicaid. Here, let's watch this because it's so funny.
Let me just read what he said. I'm sorry that we had some sort of technical issue. Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous.
But Nancy Pelosi isn't the only figure at the center of this discussion. As Joe Rogan points out, the real issue stretches far beyond one name. It's the entire political establishment. He raises the question that's on everyone's mind. How is it that so many elected officials whose careers are built on public service manage to amass fortunes large enough to transform their lives?
But the president has his own exposure, so he's always projecting. He's always projecting. And let's not give him any more time on that, please. We're going forward here, and I'm very proud of my family. And while he might make fun of us, while somebody inspired by him breaks into our home and hits my husband in a deadly fashion, hits my husband over the head, and he thinks that's a riot, I'd rather not go into some of my other complaints about him right now. Rather to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid.
Okay. First of all, what crazy projection. She immediately turned herself into a victim. She immediately went from Jake Tapper's like, what's your response? Oh, this is ridiculous. Nothing was inside.
A large number of congressional candidates already enter politics with significant wealth. In many ways, it functions like a club reserved for political millionaires. Yet what sparks public curiosity is what happens after they're elected. Once in office, many see their net worth rise sharply, and not by small margins. Sure, book deals and speaking fees might explain part of it, but the jumps are often so dramatic that it's hard to brush off the questions. Even a child would sense that something unusual is going on. On this very point, Elon Musk didn't hold back, sharing his thoughts openly as expected.
So nuts that you have gone from, you made an insane amount of money. A lot of people say you're insider trading. What's your response to Donald Trump? My husband got hit in the head with a hammer.
They're
Someone
all black belts
inspired,
at
and
deflection.
He thinks it's funny. You know, it's because it's all because the president has a lot of exposure. Like, there's a reason why that whole ability to trade stocks is still in position, and it's because they want it there. They make a ton of money. The general
they have
public,
all the insider information.
so they have to figure out at what point in time is this too dangerous, and who's willing to like make this a law. It's like they're playing chicken. Like, as long as they don't do it, as long as they don't do it, then they can still make a ton of money. But if you look at the numbers, like if you look at like who's making money on the stock market, it is not all Nancy Pelosi. It is red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. It's pretty much down the middle.
Even though Elon Musk was speaking broadly about members of Congress, his remarks take on special weight when applied to a familiar case. Much of the public conversation often circles back to Nancy Pelosi and her husband, Paul, whose stock portfolio continues to draw scrutiny and remains under investigation.
Yeah. When you look at the decisions, like she dumped stock, and then 3 months later, some big bill comes down the line to fix that company.
Yeah.
She buys stock, and then 3 months later, some big bill that comes down that, you know, they're funding for this new project. It's crazy. More than a dozen U.S. officials sold stocks before Trump's tariffs sent the market plunging. Of course they did. Watching the panic in her face, realizing that Trump is now president, and they're talking about literally going after her for insider trading, and the undeniable evidence that they have had better results on the stock market than literally anyone ever.
Yeah.
And they have access to information about laws that are going to be passed.
Yeah.
If that's not insider trading, what the fuck is?
You can't help but ask more questions the deeper you look, especially when noticing the strategically timed trades and well-placed opportunities that seem to benefit those in power. This issue is far bigger than one household or one famous political name. It's part of a broader pattern where power and wealth constantly reinforce each other. The concern is not simply that Nancy Pelosi and her husband Paul made headlines for their uncanny investment timing. It's that dozens of other lawmakers have shown similarly lucky instincts when buying and selling stocks. Consider the statistics. Pelosi's portfolio reportedly outperformed some of the best hedge funds by over 50% in a single year, while more than 20 other members of Congress outpaced the S&P 500 by nearly fourfold. These numbers raise eyebrows because they mirror what Joe Rogan called the real issue, an entire political establishment that seems to thrive financially while claiming to serve the public. Elon Musk's blunt criticism only amplified the suspicion: how do so many public servants manage to accumulate fortunes large enough to rival corporate giants? Of course, defenders will point to speaking fees, book deals, or years of professional experience, yet these explanations don't account for the scale of the wealth increase, particularly when it coincides so neatly with government actions, like Microsoft shares sold just before an FTC investigation or Visa stock shed months ahead of a DOJ complaint. For ordinary Americans, the timing feels less like chance and more like a pattern. So, is the sudden rise of financial genius among members of Congress really coincidence? Or is it evidence of something far more troubling, a system where access to inside knowledge allows leaders to profit while the people they represent are left with stagnation, distrust, and growing disillusionment?